Meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilman Anderson.
Present.
Councilman Woodford.
Present.
Mayor Swallows.
Here.
Vice Mayor Epps.
Here.
Councilman Albright. 4 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Would everyone please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right. Item 1, consider approval of agenda. Any additions, subtractions from the agenda?
No changes.
I see a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Let's consider approval of minutes of council meeting held on October 17th. A motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
So moved.
Second. You better be fast.
I think we got a first and a second. All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
All right, on to the consent agenda. Item 3, set a date, December 5th, 2013, for a public hearing on ordinance 131118, rezoning 218 and 233 East 8th Street, 706, 720, 734, 824, 832, and 836 North Jefferson Avenue from RS-15 to RS-10. And item 4, consider awarding bids for breakers and wire from the electric department. A motion for approval on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, all vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
All right, on to new business. Item 5, hold a public hearing and consider on first reading ordinance 131015, closure and abandonment of a portion of Laurel Avenue located between West 7th and West 8th Streets and declaring it as surplus. Sponsors Mr. James Mills.
Mayor and council members, the location of the streets depicted on the screen. This ordinance would not only close, abandon, and declare surplus this right-of-way, but it would make it available for acquisition by the adjoining property owners. This proposed closure was initiated by the owners of the properties on either side of Laurel Avenue, this particular section. According to the survey that was submitted with this, the portion of Laurel Avenue that would be closed is approximately 273 feet in length and has a right-of-way width of approximately 40 feet. Here's an aerial view of this section of Laurel. The total land area consists of the right-of-way consists of 0.25 acres. This right-of-way width was widened by 10 feet on the eastern side as a part of the dedication of right-of-way with the University Square RAO development that was approved a few months ago. Laurel Avenue extends, this section extends from 7th Street to 9th Street, then it breaks and extends again from 3rd to 6th Street, so it's currently not a continuous street. The requirements for closure and abandonment of public streets or right-of-way are specified in Title 16 of Chapter 4 of the Municipal Code, and those provisions have been met up to tonight's review by the council. And this is the actual survey that was submitted. There are 2 parcels that are contiguous with this section. Parcel 21 on map 40 Group A is owned by B&B Partnership, and that's on this side of the right-of-way. And then parcel 24 on this side of the same map and group, which is owned by Aaron Bernhardt, Jerry Gall, and Pat Fitzpatrick, are the owners of these 2 properties. And as I noted, the University Square Phase 1 was recently completed on the east side. And we've received a proposal for University Square Phase 2 on this side of of Laurel Avenue. And the intent here is if the right-of-way can be acquired, it would be incorporated into the development of University Square Phase 2. We had traffic counts done on Laurel Avenue, and it indicates that the street currently has an average daily traffic count of 235. Approximately 2/3 of this traffic is southbound. Traffic counts were also completed on Chestnut Avenue, which is to the west. Let me see if I've got that. Let me back up here. Here's Laurel, and here's Chestnut. And the reason why we did counsel on Chestnut is that if this section of Laurel Avenue is closed, it's likely that the majority of the traffic would shift to Chestnut. Chestnut carries 331 cars a day, with over two-thirds of its traffic being northbound. So it looks like the traffic pattern for people who cut through this area go Laurel to the south coming into town and go Chestnut to the north going out of town. But assuming there was a complete shift of traffic, Chestnut still would carry no more than 600 cars a day, which is well below the maximum that street could carry. The request was reviewed by the applicable departments. Let me back up to that slide to have the utilities in there. There is a gas line that will have to be discontinued or removed, and there's also a water main. Both of those serve the mobile home park there, and of course this area is in for redevelopment, and those utilities would be removed. The Planning Commission is recommending for approval of the closure and abandonment and declaration of surplus property with conveyance of the right-of-way to the adjoining property owners in compliance with the municipal code. The Planning Department concurs with this recommendation. Also, the petitioners have recommended or requested that the council consider the conveyance of other property, specifically for widening the right-of-way of North Willow Avenue in lieu of the required payment.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments from council?
Have you had any comments? I mean, or since this,
We did have a couple of comments at the Planning Commission review of this, concerns about the traffic being rerouted. But again, you're looking at a block away for the traffic to go, and we don't believe that there will be a major traffic impact on this. That we were looking at less than 300 cars on this particular segment of street.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I was for it. It's such a short street, and the traffic count, you're just sliding a block over, and it's well under the 600 cars.
And again, it's not a continuous street now. As you can see from this map, it just goes from 7th to 9th. Discontinues already at the block between 6th and 7th, and then only goes for 3 more blocks. It's not like Chestnut or some of these others. It's a continuous street that goes through the area.
Yeah, it's not like it's going to put a hardship or somebody in danger in that. No,
and so it'll just be incorporated into that next.
That's the intent if it can be acquired.
Okay.
And we're reviewing that next tonight, so you'll see how it would work.
Okay.
Is that the item next on the?
Yeah, it's next.
I guess I'm getting a little ahead. I have a question, James, and maybe I need, and let me know if I need to hold this till item 6. I was running today, and like I usually do, I was post-call, so I went out and did a nice long run. I said, well, let's just go out there, and I just want to check out Laurel Avenue. And of course, for those of you that have not seen the development, this is quite a benefit to our community. It looks great. It's going to add property value to the owners out there. It's going to really help this area. But I guess my question, where I'm directing this, I did get one anonymous letter. I think you all did too. I don't usually respond to anonymous letters. If kind of bothers me a little bit that someone would feel intimidated enough they don't want to give their name. That's for another discussion. But when I was running around out there, I noticed a number of folks out there in that park. I guess my question is more direct to what's going to happen with those guys, and I guess that's more of a developer, that's more of a private enterprise situation. Can you expound on that a little bit for me?
The city park that's just further west here, is that what?
Well, I mean, what's going to happen with that trailer park? There's a trailer park. I noticed there's a lot of there's some individuals still in there.
Some of the mobile homes have already been removed.
Yeah.
Those were rental units, and I mean, some of those have already been removed. Those people would be relocated, or would have to relocate.
And that's between the developer and the.
Well, it's actually between the owner of the property, who's a partner.
Oh, okay.
In this
yeah.
new in this phase, would be a partner in phase 2. I mean, they will have to relocate. I don't know what else to tell you on that.
I know I didn't really give you a really good. I didn't give you a very good question, so it's tough to have a good answer for a really sorry question. But maybe it'll be. I can flesh out a little better on item 6. So sorry for the confusion,
No,
Mr. Mayor.
But with the traffic count, I mean, it's not going to be a burden on Chestnut.
No, I mean, again, you're only looking at going over one more block to Chestnut, and And again, based on the traffic patterns, with the bulk being to the south on this street and to the north on Chestnut, it's going to balance out, so I don't think you really see that big of an impact.
Okay.
The other thing, too, was with this large-scale development, in terms of safety, it's not really a good idea to keep this segment of street open so that you traffic going through, and if they went ahead with Phase 2, you're still going to have that traffic this way, and you'll see when we review the plans for Phase 2, the traffic is controlled and left, which we believe Chestnut is probably a more significant street. Again, it goes all the way through, as you can see on the screen, and it's likely that if we continue to see RAO developments in this area, that Chestnut will have to be improved at some time, widened and to carry more traffic, because it does go all the way through from Broad all the way to 9th.
So James, Laurel will then end.
You'll still have a segment that goes between 9th and 8th, and then from 6th to 3rd.
Okay.
And again, it's broken now. That's another reason we looked at this. It is not a continuous street now.
Yeah.
It's in 2 segments already. So again, we don't think it's going to have a major impact.
James, with the plans that Tech has for that area, I would think there's a really good chance you're going to see a signal at 9th and Willow.
That's something we've been talking to Tech about. Right now, they're wanting to concentrate or plan on concentrating, having what Mr. Shipp is referring to. There's plans for a large parking area, up to now, I'm understanding, 1,000 spaces off of 9th on property owned by the university. Their immediate plan is to try to concentrate that traffic at University Drive, which does have a signal. That probably would have to have some improvements, but it's likely we will need a signal at 9th. We already get requests for signals for 9th, because now it's a major street, turns into Crescent, runs all the way out to 70. So
if that signal was at 9th and Willow, then that would, a lot of people that were using Laurel to get to 7th to get to the light would just go to,
yes,
go down 9th and go to Willow.
that's true. But in the meantime, they still can use Chestnut to go to 7th
Right.
to get to 9th. I mean, so you're talking, 200 feet, 300 feet, a block,
All right, anything else? Anyone else have anything? Feel free to come forward. All right, see you then. I'll vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Item 6, hold a public hearing and consider on first reading ordinance 131016, RAO, which is Redevelopment Area Overlay District, zoning for University Square Phase 2, which includes the following properties: 345 through 365 West 7th Street, 712 through 716 Laurel Avenue, 350 through 364 West 8th Street, and 721 Chestnut Avenue. Sponsors, Mr. James Mills.
Mayor and council members, this would be our second RAO. It's contiguous with University Square Phase 1, which was approved in May of this year. This request was initiated by Aaron Bernhardt on behalf of the property owner, who's Larry Burgess, or B&B Properties. Of course, earlier this year, we amended the zoning code to create the RAO district. And again, this would be our second one. And just to refresh everyone's memory on this, the RAO district's intended as a mechanism to encourage redevelopment or revitalization, specifically within areas identified as being in need of such within our comprehensive or our 2030 plan. This area is within an area identified in our plan as being in need of revitalization. The RAO process is very long. It requires multiple approvals by the Planning Commission, and it requires approval of establishment of the zone by the council, which is what we're doing tonight. This is showing on our 2030 plan where this fits, so it's well within this is the upper part of the rectangle that identifies what we identified in our long-range plan as an area being in need of redevelopment. So you can see from this it's well within it. This is an aerial view of the property that's being considered. It consists of approximately 1.77 acres, or 77,100 or so square feet. It's zoned currently as RD, single-family residential, and duplex residential, because that would be the underlying zone. Again, this is an overlay zone that fits on top of it, and only those uses allowed within that underlying district are allowed. This does include The plan does include, here's the existing zoning. And again, a further view out from it. The plan does include the incorporation of the right-of-way of Laurel Avenue, which was just approved on first reading. And again, the developer of this property is partners, so they'll be owning on both sides of this area. If the right-of-way is included within this area, it increases the total land area to 2.02 acres or 87,000, almost 88,000 square feet. And this land area would be reduced slightly through the dedication of right-of-way along West 7th, West 8th, and Chestnut Avenues. The primary uses of this property currently are as a mobile home park, which was previously identified as the Frizzle Mobile Home Park. Located on it are 1 single-family dwelling, 2 duplexes, and 8 mobile homes, and there's also 2 outbuildings, which are depicted on the screen. The single-family structure and duplexes are in sound condition. The mobile home park is a non-conforming use. Now, we have received the preliminary RAO concept plan. Let me get to that. Well, these are the structures. Let me go through that first that are on the property. I have several photographs here. And again, there are 8 mobile homes on the property. And you can see from this is looking to the north, and this is the section of Laurel right here. And this is phase 1 of University Square. This is one of the duplexes. Another one of the mobile homes. And the other duplex. And this is one of the outbuildings. And here is the preliminary REO plan. And again, it depicts the acquisition of the right-of-way of Laurel Avenue. It indicates that 40 townhouses will be clustered into 2 groups of 9 units, 2 groups of 8 units, and 1 group of 6 units. A total of 94 parking spaces are shown, which is actually 9 less than required. However, if you combine this with phase 1 so that we have one entire development, then there's a total of 181 spaces available for 75 dwelling units, which exceeds the parking requirements established by the zoning code. According to the development plan submitted by the developer, all existing structures would be removed within 6 months of approval of the REO district, and new construction would begin immediately thereafter and to be completed within 2 years. The floor plans for this for phase 2 are the same as within phase 1. I have, here's the elevations, and again, this will mimic phase 1, just being basically an extension of phase 1. Here are the floor plans, which is basically living and kitchen on the first floor, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths on the upper floor. Go back to the plan here. Sidewalks along West 8th Street and Chestnut Avenue would be installed. Rain gardens would again be utilized for stormwater detention instead of a detention pond. Existing sidewalks along West 7th Street would be repaired or replaced where needed. All of the proposed units would be accessed from interior private streets, which again are extensions of Joy and Charlotte Drives from phase 1. Parking would be off the private streets. No direct vehicle access from each individual unit to a public street would be permitted or be done. Canopy trees would be planted along all street frontages. And then also the site plan depicts the provision of a green space area in the middle of this development would have a small mini park for the residents of this development. As noted, the developer is seeking to develop 40 units, which is an increase of approximately 24 units over what could be constructed under RD zoning, which under RD zoning, you're required a minimum of 5,000 square feet of land area per dwelling unit. Under the REO provisions, we can allow development at a density of approximately 2,178 square feet. So for an area of 2 acres, 2.02 acres, we could approve 40 dwelling units. But as I noted earlier, they will be dedicating right-of-way for improvements to 7th, 8th, and Chestnut, which reduces the land area. And they're requesting that they be held harmless for this. With that reduction, it drops them down to 37 maximum units. But if we include that right-of-way, which is about 3 units, it equals the 40 that they could have under the REO provisions. They're also requesting reductions in the setbacks along to 215 feet along West 7th and West 8th. This is the same that was done in University 1. This would, Square 1, it would allow it to line up with the 15-foot setbacks. The structures will be staggered just as they are in University 1, so if it is reduced to 15, some of those would be at 17. So every other unit staggers, so it would be 15 and 17 in terms of the setbacks. The setback requirement in the RD district is 20 feet, so we're not looking at a significant reduction here. And again, they will be will be dedicating right-of-way on West 7th. They'll be dedicating a minimum of 5 feet of their property along West 7th and 10 feet of their property along Chestnut Avenue and West 8th Streets to provide a minimum right-of-way width of 25 feet from the center line on each street. This, again, is done for any future improvements to those streets that may be needed. The developers also requested a waiver of up to $1,025 in fees for fence permits, and for the city to pay half of the street lighting expense as was done in Phase 1. And again, this is the same thing as is typically done when you do an upgrade on street lighting, which is what's been done in University Square Phase 1. They're asking for the same as was done there. And they asked for a joint venture with the city to replace existing sidewalks along West 7th Street that are in less than good condition. The Planning Commission recommended for approval of the preliminary REO concept plan for the development of 40 single-family attached dwellings, subject to the closure, abandonment, and acquisition of the right-of-way of Laurel Avenue between West 7th and West 8th. Approval of the requested setback reductions with recommendation to the City Council for enactment of the REO zoning, waiver of the fence permit fees in the amount requested, and for authorization of the requested assistance in street lighting and sidewalk replacement. And the Planning Department concurs with this recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
I'm just glad to see this in this area. I'm glad that this is happening because we had some non-conforming in that trailer park and removing it. This is superior housing. It's going to improve the neighborhood a great deal.
Well, as we talked about at Planning Commission, there's a significant risk here for the developer based on the area. Just to be blunt, I mean, this is it does involve significant financial risk, but there is a big reward if it is successful. And again, we think from the city's perspective, it's a win-win. We get an area redeveloped. Yes, we would be granting a increase in density, but we'll have an area be redeveloped, and it means not only places for our residents to reside, but it's an increase in our tax base. The Phase 1, we looked at some preliminary numbers. The original tax value, assessed value, was $400,000. Post-development, it's over $4 million, and that's about a $10,000 just in city tax increase annually. So it's a major impact just on property tax values. But we believe that this will spur more development in this area as each of these are done.
Yes, sir.
I have a question on setbacks on 7th Street. They're out on the street.
Would you mind coming forward and state your name?
Okay, I'm Boyd Klein.
Okay.
And the setbacks are right out on the curb. And so when you're coming over 7th Street, you immediately have to swing, if you will, to the left to go on out 7th Street. How can they get away with the setback set so close to the curb when others of us are forced back deeper?
They've been given a variance to 15 feet. The setback in this back area right now in RD is 20, so it'll be a 5-foot reduction for most of the, or for half. Half would be at 15, the other half would be at 17, so you're looking at a 3-foot reduction. So the structures are not much closer than other structures in there. In fact, several of these will be set back further than the structures that were already there. Many of those structures are already encroached within the setback, and I think that's shown if you want me to indulge me to go back to the actual plan. Now, granted, this is a much larger scale development than 3 or 4 mobile homes or homes located within the setback, but in terms of setback compliance, these are no worse, in some cases better than structures that were already on the property. Now, again, we're talking about structures. What's happened and what we've reviewed here recently is they have built and are in the process of building a retaining wall that backs up to the sidewalk. We've looked at that. I've had Public Works out there. Mr. Shipley and I have been out there and met with them. Our requirements are if you're no higher than 30 inches, which there are some exclusions. For example, mailboxes. Lots of people have brick mailboxes that are up against the street. And those are more than 30 inches, but retaining walls are like this, where they can be within the setback, it's no more than 30 inches. Those are not supposed to be larger than 30 inches.
Mr. Mills, why, I mean, just for curiosity's sake, why were the setbacks set so far? I mean, but previously, I mean, at one time, that 20-foot setback was a standard that we used, and now 17 and 15 is okay. I mean, why is that? Is it because it's a change in the way we do? Something we found out that it's not a big deal, or what's?
No, not, it has more to do with aesthetics, especially a front setback. Except unless you're at an intersection, then you need to have significant setbacks there.
Right.
But it's primarily an aesthetics thing. A front setback requirement is to have that grass area within that. It also depends on lot sizes. As we go up in minimum lot size requirements, like on RS5 or an RD, it's 5,000 square feet per lot. You really can't have a very large setback within that and leave a usable area on the lot. But as you go up into RS15, then you get up to 25 or to 30-foot setbacks, and same thing with RS20. It's a 30-foot setback for a front setback. But it has to do, it's a combination of things, lot size, and the other is so that we can have green areas in our residential areas. If we allow, that does provide you with more green space. So it's a multifaceted response, but there's several reasons for that.
Almost like a trade-off. I mean, the dilapidation of the area is such that even though you've got green space, it's blighted. And even though we'll have less green space with this, the aesthetics of it are going to be much greater, and that will in essence turn into a win-win for everybody, because property values will go up, city will be able to retain greater value in tax revenue, and the owners there will have a greater valued property.
And again, many of these structures that are out there currently,
Yes.
not just in this area, as you go on out, do not meet the setback requirements. But they're all grandfathered in. I'm not, they're all legal grandfathered in.
Yes, sir.
I have another question, though. If you were over on Franklin Avenue in the 700 block, what's the setback requirement there?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to pull the zoning code.
25 feet or more?
It's 25 or 20, one of the two.
It's more than 20.
I don't know.
Why would the difference be so great in allowing these guys to build out basically into the intersection at 7th Street and Willow? I mean, if you look at it coming down 7th, I mean, you've got to sweep to get by their apartments. I'm just asking a hard question.
Well, they have a 50-foot setback off of Willow. Those buildings are 50 feet off the right-of-way off of Willow.
7th
At
Street.
the intersection, there at 7th, they were given a variance to reduce it to 15 feet, so the structures are no closer than 15. They could have been 20, so again, you're looking at between 5, and again, they're staggered between 5 and 3 feet. That's it's been reviewed by all the departments. We don't believe there was a safety issue or a safety issue that's been created by this.
Turning radius.
There's a jog in there now because when you come out to 7th, we added a turning lane, and that does make you shift a little bit there. I don't know that it's because of this development. It's done in a straight line with the right-of-way. I don't know. I mean, I'd encourage you to go out there and look and see for yourselves. But
Mr. Mayor, if you would. I've went out and looked at it, and I'm going to vote for this. Okay, I appreciate comments made, but this is a step in the right direction for an area of Cookeville that has. I mean, there's been crack houses over there. Okay, so we need to, this concept of RAO districts is. I'm very pleased we have developers are willing to take that risk to help repair areas that are blighted in our community. I've got one question,
Sure.
and it pertains to our previous item. I don't think you can answer it, but it's just kind of a heart question. When I went out there, I was running out there today. Some of those folks that live in those dwellings are elderly, okay? And my concern is, and I don't know if you can answer this, James, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to, or see if you can help me with that, or maybe Jim Woodford can help me with that. But I guess my concern is that some of these folks are on fixed incomes. Is the development of this? Do we have any assurances that development of this is going to be okay? We're not going to be putting our senior neighbors on the street. I don't know how else to put it. I'd like to
well-
put it in a little more political correct way that doesn't sound so nasty, but I just, that's kind of my heart speaking here, and wonder if you can help me.
I wish I could. I can't. I mean, really,
that's
the only
up
way
to-
I can answer that, and it sounds like a heartless answer, is the price of development. I don't know what else to say here except people will be have to relocate. I don't know what's going on between the owner, B&B Properties, and how they're dealing with it. You would hope that they're making accommodations for these people. So I know there have been at least 2 mobile homes moved out. I'm assuming they've gone to another
Right.
mobile home park or another area to locate. I don't know.
Typically, when land changes hands from owner to a different owner, the new owner has to honor whatever leases are on that property. So, at least I believe that's typically the case. And so, once the lease expires, who knows what happens then?
Right.
Or if an owner would work out a deal with a current tenant to basically buy them out of their lease. I've seen those situations. So I mean, really, it's kind of up to the landowner, the current one and or new one, how they work that deal out. But yeah, I mean, for this to happen, they'll be
Well,
moved
I
around.
figured. I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I think I realize that in my head, but I guess my heart is wondering, is just hoping that, or wondering and hoping or wishing that somehow, as the city officials, that we can help as we encourage positive development like this, that we don't run roughshod over people. And I guess I'm going to have to put my faith in our developer that they're doing and the current owner of that property, that they're doing the right things, just as you mentioned. And I've mentioned I'm going to vote yes. So but this is some of the concerns I have.
Well, that's a very valid point, and that's happened in a lot of cities. I believe it's called gentrification, where people are, basically left homeless, or they've lost their investments. Some cities have done, large cities, not cities our size, have done rent control to help address that problem. Required that developers, if you're going to go in and move these people out, you have to compensate. But that's a very good point, and that may be something, as this hopefully proceeds on, that we'll need to address, especially when it's a rental property. If it's a owner occupied, then they've voluntarily given up their through a purchase. But that's a very good point, and I don't have a good answer. I wish I did.
The main thing I can say there is, I mean, leases are there for for their protection to a certain degree, to a certain time frame.
Right.
And so they'll have to honor that, I would imagine, or figure out
Buy
some
'em out.
yeah, figure out some way that the tenant would agree to move. So. I don't. They can't. It's hard to really force anybody out. Like
Somebody could have been months.
Mr. Gall's here.
I'm Jerry Gall, and I certainly appreciate what you said there, and I can tell you, I know all the players in this, and that's not going to be an issue. All leases will be honored and are being honored, and matter of fact, I think most of them are just month to month. I think, to my knowledge, I'm not aware of any hardship cases that are involved in this, as far as anyone being confronting being forced to move out, given an opportunity to have time to make other arrangements to move. So, and in some cases, and this is not, I don't know this for 100% truth, but in some cases, as I understand it, on the mobile homes, some of those folks are kind of excited because I think they're getting the mobile homes and they're getting places to move them. So then they do have, some incentive there, I guess. They have a home. So it's, again, I'm not aware of any hardship situation. And I'll be glad to check in.
Thank you for speaking up, because that was just one of the things I was concerned about, and I appreciate. I just as a city official, I've said this before. We want to continue to develop and help the city grow in the best way possible. It's great for all citizens. Just don't want to run roughshod over people. Sometimes there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
Because we're in a free market economy. But I appreciate your comments, and I certainly hope that is the situation. Thank you for Mr. Goff for doing that for me.
Hey, let me say one other thing about the setback question I failed to mention. if you remember, I said they're dedicating right-of-way off of their properties for widening of the street. So the 15-foot reduction doesn't include the 5-foot of dedication that they're doing off of 7th Street. The 10-foot of dedication they're doing off Chestnut. So these structures are actually would meet the current setback requirements for the current right-of-way. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's no loss here in terms of setback.
So the road's going to get widened, but they're going to move it. The road's going to get widened, but they're going to move it closer to the road, but it's still going to be from the center of the road. It's going to be farther away than it was before.
Well,
right?
of course, there won't be any, I don't know of any immediate plans to widen, but basically what it is you've got a line for the right-of-way. They're going to give us 5 feet, but we've measured the setback from the new dedication. So you've got 15 plus the old 5. That's on 7th. On 8th and Chestnut, it's 10 feet. So they're actually a 25-foot setback there. Part of this, too, I believe, has to do with these are two-story. This is a large development. It just looks like it's
Scale.
closer than a mobile home.
Scale looks bigger, yeah. It's a bigger scale. I appreciate
I'm sorry, I want to make sure that was clarified.
Yes, sir.
So if we went by what he's suggesting, then, in effect, they would have to chop off these walls that they're presently building to accommodate the setback, correct? Because all you've got is the sidewalk, and then you've got this brick wall that's being built very nicely. But there will be no room between the center line of 7th Street and the front of that building except a street if they want to widen the street, correct?
Oh.
No.
The wall
To come down.
the wall is within right-of-way. It's up against, but we have that in several places in the city, where, West Jackson, the bank there's a wall that's in the right-of-way that backs up to the sidewalk. And it's a retention wall is what it basically serves out. What they'll be required to do on their final revised REO plan is there'll have to be a waiver on there that if that ever needs to be widened or if the city ever has to get into that, that's at their expense. They have to repair any damage done to that. That's not ours. They assume the responsibility for that. And it'll be signed and recorded with the final REO document.
Does that make sense?
There is some protection of the city if that street were to be widened.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
if we need to widen that,
Development.
that's their responsibility to repair, fix back anything that needs to be done within our right-of-way. And we've got several of those agreements across the city where we've allowed people to put retaining walls within the right-of-way, and even I think we've got some fences that are that way, that if we have to go, it may
They
not
still have
always
to be in compliance, though. Even then, they still have to be in compliance, right?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Okay. Does that help? Yes, sir.
Some streets then in Cookeville presently would have a larger setback than others. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
So Franklin Street from 7th to 8th or 7th to Crescent Drive or 9th Street would have a deeper setback of at least 25 feet, 50 feet from center line, correct? Maybe?
Well, what we're looking at is we're looking at right-of-way, which is what the street fits within. The right-of-way goes to your property line, and then at the property line, your setback starts.
Okay.
But the street can fit with anywhere within that right-of-way. If it's 40 feet or 50 feet or 30 feet, it's not necessarily right down the middle, and it's not necessarily, and rarely, is the edge of the street your property line. We usually have property on the other side or on either side of the pavement. I was trying to get back to that zoning map so I could show you. Give me just a minute. We can see what your zone is.
But also, sir, keep in mind that there's a lot of structures that have been there already when the zoning happened, so there's some that are grandfathered. So it's going to look a little different
Well, I don't know
from
if you can
place
see
to
from
place.
this, but this has the existing structures, and you can see a lot of them are already within the setbacks.
Uh-huh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Look how far that went.
Okay, just wanted, oops. Okay, here, this is Franklin. So most of it is RS5. This was RD. RS5 is a 20-foot setback, front setback.
James, it also depends on what classification the road's a
Well,
major
if it's a
arterial.
major street, no matter what zone you're in, it's a 50-foot setback. But that's like Willow, Jefferson, 70. The others range from 20 feet to 30 feet when you're not on a major street.
I'm sorry, sir, what was your name again?
Boyd Klein,
Klein?
KLID.
Mr. Klein, it sounds like you have a lot of questions about setbacks, zoning, all that stuff.
Well,
and we'd love to
I'm kind of
answer.
concerned right now of some work on Franklin myself, and not knowing, it's north of 4th Street, or south of 4th Street, but just wanting to know, like, in other words, you can't really use the sidewalk and go back 25 feet. I mean, because
No.
you don't know where the center line really is out front of that house.
Well,
Is that correct?
the line the line you need to know is your property line.
Know where the pin is in the
Yeah,
front corner.
and what we encourage anybody that has any kind of development plans or expansion plans is get a survey. That's the first thing you should do, is get a survey.
Okay.
We've seen, much less now than used to, but where people have built over the line and where they've been required to remove it. And that can be very, very expensive. It also puts a cloud on your title when you sell your property, because then there's a survey done, and if it shows it's within a violation of a setback, that can hinder the sale of the property. So we always encourage people to get a survey.
Mr. Klein, what I was going to recommend, it sounds like you have a lot of questions, and maybe even a few specific ones, but we would love for you to come and talk to Mr. Mills.
The problem that I really have is when I come over 7th Street and I see these units, built what I call out into the street, in effect. Regardless where the center line was there, I see them as being in the street. And anybody else that comes down 7th Street is going to say they're in the street. And up on Franklin, I'm going to probably be forced to 25 feet. And to jam that corner at 7th in the way in which it's been done, I think should have been more of a sweep at least, and not be shoved all the way to Willow Avenue. That's just my concern, and I may be wrong.
Yes, sir. Mr.
James,
Shaw.
is there not a stipulation in the code where, like in the case where he might be doing something in his area, to where he can average
Yeah.
existing, the front of an existing building?
There's a provision in the zoning code that allows you to average setbacks of existing structures. For example, if this gentleman, if two structures on either side of him were set back at 15 feet, then he could set back at 15
Okay.
feet. 15 feet's the minimum. For example, we had a 30-foot setback and the guy beside you was at 20 and the other one was at 25, then you could go 22.5 to average those out. There is a provision what that does, it removes the requirement that you have to go through the Board of Zoning Appeals, pay the variance fee, which is $200. I mean, there's we try to incorporate, believe it or not, some common sense into this, that treat everybody the same, give them the same rights that the adjoining owners have. So there are ways where we try to work with people, believe it or not.
And one more comment.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
And I'll let everything go at that point. One of the things that bothers me about development, and I think this is a great idea, like Larry said, but the one thing that bothers me is the number of trees. I'm a tree hugger. And to just plant them out along the curb, for me, is not enough. And I would like to see some consideration given to a developer who cuts down a tree 4 inches more or more in diameter, or whatever you decide, that they have to plant another tree inside of the work area, the living area, for people to have a little shade, not have a blacktop continuous from curb to curb. It's something to think about.
Well, we do, that's been something that's been talked about for years, losing large established trees.
Right.
And that's really, we would love to see that happen too, but that's really hard to do and incorporate a new development. We do have provisions that if you save an existing tree, then the number of trees you're required to plant to meet our codes is reduced based on what you save. So there is a minor incentive for developers to keep trees. It's not, I'm sure, nearly enough as some people would feel to have. But especially in light of the tree that was in the paper, I mean, we're trying to, it's private property. And I think another thing here on this is that there will be many more trees on this site after development, post-development than there were pre-development. Granted, they're younger trees, but these are all trees that will grow up and let's go back and look at this in 15 years and see the shade. And it's going to take a while. And you really can't replace a heritage tree.
Right.
But over time, I think you'll see this be a heavily shaded area.
The area that is the green space, is that going to be a playground? Is that going to be, and I know that has nothing to do with what we're voting, but since we've kind of bird walked everywhere tonight, I thought I was dying to know what's going to go in that green space. Is it going to be picnic area?
I'll let Jerry speak on that, but it's my understanding it'll be picnic with trees and shrubbery. But Jerry, you want?
It's just, we tried to find a green space.
Okay.
And we're wanting to create like a picnic pavilion.
Okay.
Park-like setting.
A green area for trees.
All right.
And we like trees as much as anybody else. And we hate to lose them there. So yeah, we're going to, and we would like to enhance the area as much as we can with as much green space as possible. And that's what we came up with.
Yeah.
Part of the goal here and all this long range, if this would all work out like we hope it will, is to create a walkability area where there's a lot of stuff, and there's a park just a couple of blocks to the west here that these residents would have available to them. And that's the whole overall goal here is to try to do something that's walkable where it's easily accessible to the downtown, to the hospital, to the university, and
Well,
we do have some vision here.
one of the things that I've thought about with this RAO development, particularly this area here, is that it has a great deal of walkability. I mean, you have access to the entire downtown within just a few minutes of walking because it's just the opposite side of where I live on Dixie, and that's one of the things that I love about where I live is I can walk pretty much anywhere I want to go, and it's a great excuse to pretend like you're walking off the calories you ate at dinner that night, by walking to the nearby restaurants. But I foresee that if people really take off on this, they could take advantage of being able to walk around.
Anything else? All right, I'll vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Klein, thank you for
Yeah.
raising those questions. Item 7, hold a public hearing and consider on first reading ordinance 131017, RAO redevelopment zoning for 423 and 429 West Broad Street and 116, 118 Chestnut Avenue. Sponsors Mr. James Mills.
Mayor and council members, this will be our third RAO, and it was initiated by Aaron Bernhardt on behalf of property owners Jerry Gall and Tim Stover. So again, there's 2 property owners and a developer involved in this. The property consists of parcels 2, 27, and 28 on tax map 53A Group D, and combined they consist of 2.2 acres. The site is located entirely within an area identified in our 2030 plan, and again, this red dotted line shows the boundary as depicted in our 2030 plan. As you can see, it's well within it. The underlying zone, here's an aerial photograph, which I may come back to. The underlying zoning of these 3 parcels is primarily CG, general commercial, the portion that comes off of Broad, and then off of Chestnut, this parcel is zoned as RD, single family and duplex residential. Right now, the property is primarily used for residential purposes. This is the existing land use. Currently, there's a single-family dwelling and a 2-family apartment on this parcel on Chestnut. This tract now is vacant, but previously it had 3 dilapidated single-family structures that have been removed. Here shows the structures that were previously located there that have been removed. There was also a small outbuilding. This is looking at the property from Broad to the north. A couple of radiator shops located here. This to the north, but more to the west. I think that's Dollar General. And this again to the west. And this is looking to the back of the property off of Chestnut. There's 2 apartments located in this. This is across the street, Stovers. This is the home on Chestnut, and that's the 2-unit apartment complex there. The site plan indicates that there would be 36 townhomes on the property, which would be clustered into 5 groups of 6 units and 2 groups of 3 units. There are 2 different floor plans proposed for this development. The 24 units would be single-level units with 2 bedrooms and 2 baths, and there would be 12 2-story units with 2 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. One of the things when we went through the REO and we've been reviewing the plans, one of the things we got some comments on were to make available single-story units, especially for the elderly, where they don't have to go up and down steps, and that's one of the things that's been incorporated here. This is the view of the elevation plans of the single-story units. And this is the floor plan for those. And then the 2-story units, this is how they would look. These would all be all brick construction, and would have hardy plank accents. And according to the submitted development schedule, the existing structures on this property would be removed within 60 days of the establishment of the REO district, with new construction beginning thereafter and to be completed in 1.5 years. Sidewalks along Chestnut would be installed. Rain gardens on West Broad Street and Chestnut would be utilized for stormwater detention. All the proposed units would be accessed from a private interior street. A homeowners association would oversee the upkeep of that street and all common properties within the development. Canopy trees are to be planted along all street frontages. And again, the developers indicated they would like to construct 36 units, which this is an increase of approximately 3 units over what could be constructed under CG and RD zoning, which require a minimum of 2,500 and 5,000 square feet of land area per unit. For the portion of the property zoned as RD, you currently could put 2 units on it. For the part zoned as CG, you could actually have 31 units on it now. So we're not looking at a major increase here. The developer requests reductions in the rear setback requirements from 20 feet and 15 feet, because there's 2 different zoning district here, to 10 feet. And that rear setback's what's in here, on either side here. And again, this backs up to Cookeville Radiator Shop and Dollar General. Within, the developers also requested, as the other 2 REO developments at the city, that pay half of the street lighting expense. And again, that's the expense for upgrading to a better level light. And that's the typical what's done, I believe. Right? Is that correct, Tony? The Planning Commission has recommended approval of the preliminary REO plan for the development of 36 single-family attached dwellings for the requested setback reductions, and has recommended that the council enact REO zoning and authorize the requested street lighting assistance. The Planning Department concurs with this recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
One of the things that we have done, and I guess you may notice over on 7th and Willow, we've tried to do everywhere is on our lighting, we've upgraded to the lamp post. We have done that, paid for that, and because we feel like that in itself helps the look, the aesthetic. Of the property. So I just was throwing that in, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Back to pick on the same thing. What's the setback on Chestnut and the setback on Broad? Did you mention that?
Well, they've not asked for variances from that. They'll comply with the setback requirements along Chestnut and along Broad. They're depicted, I can't read that, but they do comply. I think it's 30 and 30,
Okay.
or 25 and 30.
25.
But the setback reduction is on the rear here,
Right, I understand that.
not the front. They will comply with the setback requirement. You know, another thing about this development and the other one is they're actually installing drainage facilities, which this area, especially the northern one, and probably here too, really had nothing for stormwater. And anything we can get out there, of course, they have to show that could be no more water coming off post-development than was pre-development. So that's another enhancement that we hope will continue in this area.
Anyone else?
That's good news, because Willow can become a river at certain times.
Well, I don't know that we'll stop that, but
Again, I guess I'm going to ask two more questions. The green space and the trees.
Yeah.
There was no mention of trees.
yeah, I did. There'll be canopy trees planted along Chestnut and along Broad Street.
But nothing within the facility in
No.
both cases. On
Very
the
well
other
done.
RAO nor this one, correct?
Not within the interior. The other one will have some on that park area that they built, the green area. Jerry, are there any plan on the interior of this? Trees?
Well, no, but as it stands right now, it's CG zoning. Two things there. One, CG zoning is zero sideline setback
For commercial?
for commercial. So even though we're asking for a variance on the rear setback, we're going to be 10 feet further away than we would be if we were developing a commercial building. And one of the things that we will be doing, that you would be doing with the commercial building, is in front of all of the individual units. And they are zero lot lines, and they are individual homes, affordable homes. There will be landscaping. So, I mean, shrubbery and mulch areas and a patch of green grass.
Some green, yeah. All right. Anything else? I'll vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Mills. Item 8. Consider approval of contract with Michael Brady, Inc. for services on the construction, inspection, etc. of the new animal shelter. Sponsors Mr. Jim Shipley.
Mayor and Council, this is a contract for construction inspection services for the new animal shelter with Michael Brady and Associates. They will advise and consult with the city during the construction. They'll visit the construction site to determine that the work is being properly done according to the contract. They'll review and certify all the pay requests from the contractor. And we estimated $40,000 for this service in our bond issue, and their contract amount is $35,250, and I would recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Shipley. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
Always good to come under.
Yes. I think this will be money well spent.
Yeah.
All right. I'll vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
All right. Item 9. Consider changes to city health insurance plan premiums. Sponsors Mr. Mike Davidson.
Mayor, council members, just kind of like to refresh everyone's memory of kind of where we've been with health insurance and where we're at today, how we got to this point. The city, some 16 years ago, decided to be self-insured, partially self-insured for health insurance. We started that back in 1998, and as part of that, the premiums were set. Premiums that the city pays on behalf of employees and retirees, and premiums that the employees and retirees pay as well go into the health insurance fund. That money is used to pay all claims and plan-related expenses. In 2003, we went back into the Blue Cross Blue Shield network. Blue Cross Blue Shield administers their plan. We purchase stop-loss coverage to guard against large catastrophic claims. Currently, we have 1,122 plan members. That's up from 1,077 roughly a year ago. The average age of our covered employees and retirees is 50.7, and when you consider all the dependents, children's, everyone, the average age is 38.3. Over the years, in ways we've tried to control costs as best we can, in 2010, we changed networks within Blue Cross Blue Shield. We were in their Network P. We moved to their Network S. Blue Cross said that we would realize some savings there because the claims reimbursement to providers is a little less in Network S. So we made that change in 2010. In 2011, we made a change in the employees, the deductible. And in terms of the plan benefits, we went from a $500 deductible to a $1,000 deductible. Our max out of pocket is $1,500. And in 2011 as well, we initiated a Get Fit program, trying to get our employees active and hoping in the long run that maybe we can get more healthy, which hopefully will translate to lower claims in the long run. So we started that in 2011. We also partnered with Cookeville Regional Medical Center and the Employee Health Clinic. That's now open to employees as well as their dependents. It's been 10 years since we looked at a premium increase, or at least since we've had a premium increase. 2003 was the last time that we raised premiums, changed the premiums whatsoever. Some things to look at going forward in January 2014, starting January 2014, related to the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act, we're going to be required to offer insurance to part-time employees that work an average of 30 hours per week. Now, that provision's been delayed until 2015, but that's sitting out there on the horizon for us to consider. Max out-of-pockets, that's $1,500. One thing that now will go toward the max out-of-pockets is prescription copays that the employees, the members in the plan pay. That's going to go toward their max out-of-pocket, so we're going to hit that $1,500 limit quicker because of this. There's a wider scope of wellness benefits now as due to the Affordable Care Act, so there's a ton of benefits that are paid at 100% now, or at least come January they will be. There's no dollar limit any longer on the essential health benefits. There's no pre-existing conditions. Come January 1, everyone will be covered as soon as they're a member of the plan, with no pre-existing conditions allowed. Clinical trials will be covered as long as it's an approved clinical trial. And there's a reinsurance fee that's part of the Affordable Care Act. That's estimated to be around $80,000 to our insurance plan. So these are all impacts that's going to, best as I can tell and estimate, it's going to drive our claims on up. You can see from this chart that our claims over the years back to fiscal year 04, 1.7 million. Fiscal year 13 that ended June 30th, 2013, our claims was $3,559,000. I've got projected for the end of fiscal year 14 to be somewhere around $3,680,000 in claims. And if you go ahead and look out another fiscal year trying to project that, I'm looking at what appears to be around $3,828,000 in claims. Our health fund over the years, it's grown. We had it as low as $600,000 back in 2003. It peaked in 2008 at $4,690,000. Over the last few years, it steadily started to decline. This past fiscal year, it dropped from $4.2 million at June 30th of 2012 down to $3,588,000 at June 30th of 2013. And right now, based on projections for this current fiscal year 14, without some plan or premium changes, plan changes, something, it looks like we'll drop the fund balance down to $2.8 million. And again, when I try to project ahead in another year out in 2015, fiscal year 15, without changes, that fund balance will drop down to $1.8 million or so. So that gets me to why I think we need to look at changing the premiums. And the premiums that I've estimated is looking at trying to fund out into 2015, those claims that we've got projected for 15. So hopefully these premiums will get us up until 2016, and then we'll have to look and see. Well, we'll look at it again next year. We'll just have to continue to monitor it, but I think these premiums will keep us from eating into the fund balance too much all the way out through 2015. Currently, for active employees, active employees participate, and our retirees participate in our health plan. The active employees currently pay the current premium combined with the medical and dental plan for active employees that just have single-only coverage is $316 a month. The recommended premium for that come January 1, 2014 would be a total of $428. Family coverage is currently $824. What I'm recommending the premium to be would be $1,041. When you break that down between employees and what the city puts into the health plan, currently the employees on a single-only coverage pays $40 a month. That would increase to $55 per month. On the family premium, current employees pay $197 per month, and that would increase to $250 per month. The city as well puts into the health fund based on these same numbers on the single-only coverage. The employees City's currently putting $276 into the health fund. That would jump to $373. And the family coverage, the city is putting in $627. That would jump to $791. And as I mentioned, and that's 80. Just to kind of break that down, percentages on the single coverage, the city's paying 87% of that premium. The employees are paying roughly 13%. On the family coverage, the city's paying 76%, and the employees are paying 24% of that premium. Now, on the retirees, they're eligible to participate in the plan as well when they retire. The city contributes toward that premium for them based on their years of service, and that varies on each individual retiree because it's all based on years of service. But the recommended premium for retirees would go for a retiree that just has single coverage only. It's currently medical, the medical piece of it is currently $289. That would jump to $401. If they have family premium, they cover dependents and well, and we have several that do. That's currently another $428 per month. That would jump to $470 or $572. We also have retirees that are Medicare eligible, and those that are 65 or older that have Medicare as their primary, most of them continue to keep the city's coverage as a secondary policy. And the current premium for those individuals is $141. It would increase to $195. And retirees are eligible to participate in the dental plan. The dental plan, they pay 100% of that premium if they want to participate in the dental. But the single coverage on dental is $27. That would stay the same at $27. But the family coverage would be for retirees increase from $60 to $68 per month. And again, the last time we increased premiums, it's been 10 years ago, 2003. At that time, just to point out, employees in 2003 for single-only coverage, they were paying $0, and the city was paying the full premium for them. We increased that to $40. And the family coverage at that time went from $157 to the $197 where we're at today. So those are the recommended premiums, just to try to show you what I think the impact would be if we increase these premiums and try to stabilize the reserve fund. Kind of the orange bar on the graph, if we increase premiums effective January 1, the anticipated reserve fund would drop from the $3,588,000 where it is at June 30th, 2013, down to $3.3 million, roughly 3.3, as opposed to taking it on down to $2.8 million. And with these same premiums, looking on out into fiscal year 15, that fund balance will stay right around that $3.3 million mark, as opposed to coming on down, dropping it down to $1.8 million without making a premium change. So that's kind of how we got to where we're at today, why I think we need to look at increasing the premiums today so that we don't decrease that cash reserve fund below that $3 million mark. And I would recommend approval and happy to answer any questions that I can.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
I think it's remarkable that we hadn't had an increase since 2003, but I can see the math doesn't lie. The workforce is increasing in age, and the claims have increased. We have to be responsible, because if you've got 3 or 4 or maybe more large claims, that would wipe out that reserve somewhat, and we don't need to be below what you recommend, which is close to that $3 million figure.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to point out, I think you guys have done an excellent job. You've done an excellent job of managing the health plan. Of course, I'm in the health insurance business, and to not increase your premium for 10 years is absolutely unheard of from my side of the fence. So that's phenomenal, that in itself. But everybody needs to realize that there are a lot more costs associated with coming to us because of the Affordable Care Act. So, we know guaranteed there's going to be more dollars paid out. So we have to protect our fund balance. So this is part of how we have to do that. When January 1, right off the bat, you're going to be spending at least $80,000 more in fixed costs. Mm-hmm. So it's got to come from somewhere, and by raising this now, I think it better enables us to control our fund balance and stay solvent and stay safe, which are all good things. Because looking at the overall cost of the plan, it still is very, very affordable. Like I said, from my view, where I see it every day, and it's very, very competitive.
Well, and the city has been so good about the, I've gone blank, but what we just did last week, getting our blood drawn, the health fair, and then also the health clinic that employees and their dependents can use. Definitely, the city of Cookeville has cared very well for their employees when it comes to health.
Mr. Davidson, we talked about this in work session. I wish I'd like you to just expound on this a little bit more. I mean, the city's been very, I feel, been very generous to our employees. And thank you, Alma, for recognizing that. But on average, the city's going to cover 80% of these premium costs. I mean, the cost increases. Would you take just a little time to explain where those funds are going to come from? Because that's what the taxpayers are going to be the ones that are going to see those costs.
Well, back during our budget work sessions,
right.
We've been watching. We watch this fund, and we watch it closely because it can be so volatile. Claims moving up and down. But for the last year and a half, we know that we've been eating into that. Well, since 2008, we've been eating into that fund balance. So when we started looking at it again at budget work session, we knew that possibility would have to look at changing the premiums. And with the city paying a majority of those premiums, we factor that into this year's budget. So what's already been budgeted within the general fund is coming out of current revenues. We have that budgeted, should the premiums be approved, the new premiums. So it's budgeted in the general fund. Those funds, come January 1, the new premiums would be moved over on a monthly basis into our health insurance fund. And we know, we've looked ahead, we know next fiscal year, because we're only funding these for half of this fiscal year, we know there's an additional cost next year that hopefully the recurring revenues are going to be there to fund the additional monies from the general fund that'll be required to cover the city share of these premium increases. Next year, we're looking at an additional $150,000 that we'll have to find from the general fund. That'll be part of what moves over into the health insurance fund balance because of these increases. But we think the revenues will be there in recurring revenues to fund that.
You think growth in our we've been averaging what, Jim, about 1 to 3% growth a month with this current economic upswing. I mean, you guys are thinking that we're probably should be able to cover those costs without looking at property tax increases or anything.
Wow.
So
Yes.
I mean,
Hope so.
we all hope
That's
so.
the last thing I look for is property tax increases. Our sales tax growth last year was 2.75%. Right now, we budgeted this year at 2.25%, and we're right on track at that 2.25% so far through the first 4 months of the fiscal year. So I'm hoping the same thing will occur next year, and we'll see the revenue growth that can cover this.
I am too. Okay, thank you, Mr. Davidson.
Anything else? All right, anyone else? Yes, sir.
John Azell, I just have a quick question. Are the deductibles going to change at all?
No.
Yay.
Anything else? All right, I'll vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, item 10. Consider awarding bids for tractor with side mower and leaf vacuum machine. Sponsors Public Works Department, Mr. Greg.
Mayor and council, we recently bid or accepted bids for a tractor with a side mower as well as a leaf vacuum machine. The low bid for the tractor with side mower was $51,995 from CMI Equipment. The low bid for the vacuum was $24,087 from ODB. Both of these items are budgeted items, and I would recommend your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
This comes at a very timely moment with all the leaves falling.
I have a comment. When I was 17 years old, I drove one. For one summer, I drove one of those mowers. I can't believe they put that much money in the hands of a dumb 17-year-old.
Well, now, just remember, when you were 17, it probably wasn't that expensive.
Well, still,
Probably. Not saying anything.
still though, a
Larry.
fraction. That's like I wouldn't have gave my 17-year-old. I don't give him my have a hard time giving my push lawnmower.
Yes, sir.
positive side of the situation that pretty much drug in a negative. I am really impressed with city services in general.
Thank you.
From the timber guy that shows up at my brush pile, the leaf business. I think we need to give credit to the city for the services that are provided and done in a very timely manner. I had a project going on Clover Avenue. We had 4 full loads of brush. They hauled all of them away in a very timely manner. I'm talking about a lot of brush.
Thank you. Thank you. That's always good to hear those things. Thank you. We appreciate that. That's the man in charge of that department.
He is.
You probably weren't out there yourself, but you made sure it got done, right? So thank you for those comments, and we welcome you here anytime. So,
Leadership trickles
all right.
down.
Anything else? We vote on that?
Did we make a motion?
We made a motion. Yeah,
We did make a motion?
Yes. All
Okay.
right, I'll vote.
All right, okay, I'll vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you.
I made the motion.
All right. This is part of the meeting. We open the floor to anybody if they want to come up and say anything.
Well, I'll start my monthly plea that we encourage everybody when they do their shopping for Christmas to shop right here in Cookeville, Tennessee, and try to keep our tax dollars at home.
Yes, please.
Now, this weekend we have with Art Prowl on the
The
west
Art
side.
Prowl on the west side.
So, check that out.
And since I live over there where the new Public Works building is going on, kudos, hats off to the builder and to Greg and his department. That's it's looking great.
It is looking good.
It was looking pretty nasty. Ooh, not nasty. It didn't look so great before. It's looking really good now. And I've had a lot of comments about that, about how great it looks. Greg, the letters look great.
And actually, Mr. Klein, we dug up a bunch of concrete, a bunch of pavement in front of the new Public Works building, and we put grass. So and trees.
That's in your neighborhood, so you're going to protect them.
We're trying. We're trying. Anything else? All right. This meeting's adjourned.